Hi, it's Marlisa. I was planning on doing a video this week on taking your needlework on vacation or traveling because I'm at the beach right now. But I thought it was important to take a minute to talk about something else. There's a lot of unrest going on in the United States. There's a lot of protests, even violence, even in my hometown of Birmingham, Alabama. I am not going to give forth my opinion about things or my thoughts on what's going on or who's doing what, because I would rather give that space to the people who are more directly affected by it, and to give attention to the people of color who are active in the costuming community and who have more context than I do. So what I'm going to do is encourage you to check out the YouTube channels of the many amazing people of color that are in our community. I'm going to have links below in the description box. I know of Tiny Angry Crafts, Dandy Wellington, Not Your Mama's History, who are all in the African American community. We also have Sosteen, of an amazing person of color who's active in our community. And I'll ask you, who are the other accounts that you find amazing that you want to bring some attention to? And if you'll put that in the comments below, then I'll keep updating the description box with the other people you mentioned, either on YouTube or Instagram. Just let me know who they are so I can find a link to their account, and I'll keep that list updated. I do want to comment on one thing. We as historical costumers, or people who practice a craft based on historical models, we have a responsibility to take into consideration the context in which things are created and the characters that we may be portraying when we do so. There are a lot of things that we can do to glorify a time that does not jive with our own social values, sometimes unintentionally. I've certainly realized when I've done this myself. You can refer to it as the Scarlet OHara effect. If you think about the beautiful gowns of the antebellum era and the wide sweeping verandas and an easier time, but you do it without also acknowledging the human cost to support that lifestyle, I think that is dangerous. And that's not to say that these historical locations are ignoring it. There are many, many plantations and other historical sites who have done wonderful work to investigate and document and recognize and educate on the lives of slaves or indentured servants or other suppressed peoples. I think as tourists, it's our responsibility to receive that information and include it in our understanding. As someone who works with archives, not only as a researcher, so on the front side, but also as a librarian on the back side, I think it is incredibly important that we recognize that artifacts themselves are objective, but artifacts in and of themselves don't have opinions. It's what they represent, it's what we choose for them to represent that matters. And a really good example of this is the Confederate flag, which there are examples of Confederate flags that do exist in archives and museums, and rightfully so. They should be there, absolutely. But it is one thing to recognize that this is an artifact of history, of an event that happened, and it's another thing to take that flag and glorify it and continue to use it as a symbol of the values that you have decided that thing represents. how would one go to a Civil War battle reenactment and portray someone who was in the Confederacy and reconcile that with current views of social justice and equality? I hope that the people taking part in these events do have those thoughts. I'm confident that some do. I'm not sure about all. I don't know how I myself would feel in that situation if I were asked to portray someone that thought or acted in a way that was contrary to my own personal morals. But this is something that I think we should think about. I think this is something that we should consider. That when we play act history, it's not just play. In some ways, it can give approbation to the actions or the thoughts that are represented there. This can also be true for other situations, not just racial injustice. Cultural appropriation is a huge topic in fashion design, also costuming. There are scholars much more appropriate than I to talk about that, so I'm not going to try. I suggest that you go to the Google or contact your local librarian and ask for help researching that topic. Pretty much any time in our history that you look at a beautiful dress, an elaborate costume, it's almost guaranteed that some person or group of people was exploited in the process of that item's making. Whether it's slave labor or indentured servants, child labor back in the early days of factory production, underpaid, unsafe work conditions. All throughout our history, we have examples of, in many ways, being the foundation for our fashion production. And that's not gone today. It absolutely does exist today. If you are interested in learning more about the exploitation of workers in fast fashion and its production, I suggest that you go find the YouTube account of Justine Leconte. I'll have her linked below. She does a really great job of pulling together information and laying it out in a way that is very educational and heartbreaking at the same time. Not just the moral implications, but also the ecological impact of many of these practices. So that's kind of all I have to say. I am going to finish that video about smocking and about traveling with your needlework and all those fun things. And next week I'll be back with more fun, uncomplicated smocking videos. But for at least this next week, I would ask that you just think about the context of your research, of your project, what inspired it, what inspired the style, where did the materials come from, and what is the historical origin of your inspiration garment, materials, your modern materials. And, I'm not saying you have to change your mind on anything. I'm just asking that you take a moment, think about those things. Think about the ways that you interact with your history and the history of your community. And when you are in these museums and archives or come across a historical monument, just think about its context. So yeah, I guess that's it. I'm not going to say that I hope everyone is well, because I know there are people who aren't. I know there are people who aren't safe. But I will say is I wish everyone were safe. And I hope that eventually we can get to that point. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks so much for spending your time with me.